Hello, everyone. I'm Assembly Member Kenson Chu. Thank you all for joining us today for a very, very informative and important discussion. I hope that you and your loved ones have been staying safe and healthy during this difficult time. I'm happy to be hosting this virtual voting town hall during this COVID-19 with Representative Ro Khanna, Santa Clara County Board of Supervisor President Cindy Chavez, and Santa Clara County Registrar of Voters Shannon Boucher, and Alameda County Register of Voters Tim Dupree. You know, with this issue during this pandemic has brought on a lot of challenges and stress to our community. With all the issues we are facing, I know that for someone, this upcoming election in November may be the last thing on their mind. However, more than ever, your vote will be crucial. We have a lot of state proposition and local measures on the ballot, and we need to elect leaders who are experienced, dedicated, and will help us through this pandemic. Knowing that this upcoming election in November will be so different from the previous election due to this pandemic, the state as well as the federal government, the local county government has invested a tremendous amount of money to make sure that this election goes and the result is secure, safe, and most importantly, user-friendly. We have implemented ways that for you to track your vote and many other features. I know that our registrar of voters will be sharing with us because the implementation in Santa Clara County may be a little bit different than the Alameda County. And this is why I put together this town hall and invite them to join us so how we can vote safely during this pandemic. There will be time for questions from the audiences. You have a couple of options to submit your questions. Comment on Facebook Live is one, or email the question to assemblymember.chu@assembly.ca.gov, which is shown on the screen here. And if you have missed part of this town hall, it will be posted in my Facebook and my website, so you can share with other people or to just review part of it, the part that you have missed. And we will answer questions toward the end of the town hall, but you can submit your questions at any time. Before we begin, I would like to welcome Representative Ro Khanna. He represents Santa Clara and Alameda County, who is a very good friend of mine and very, very hardworking congressman representing us in both Alameda and Santa Clara County. He's been pushing for us at the federal level to ensure that we get the assistance we need. So with that, Ro, the mic is yours.
Summer, we were still waiting for Congressman to join.
Oh, the Congressman, okay. Well, then we can probably skip to another good friend of mine, who's the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisor President Cindy Chavez. She's been working really, really hard during this pandemic and leading the county for a recovery. So with that, Supervisor, Madam President.
Oh, thank you. And Assembly Member Chu, I just want to say how much I appreciate you hosting this town hall today, because I know we have a lot of people in our community who are really concerned about how the election's going to work and whether or not we're doing all we can to make sure it's going to be safe and seamless and easy for people to access. And so it's also a pleasure, and I really appreciate you inviting them, Assemblymember Chu, to have two registrars of voters, not one, but Shannon Boucher from Santa Clara County and Tim Dupuis from Alameda County. That's just, this is like a double header, so that's great. So first of all, I really wanted to thank the Registrar of Voters for adapting to the impacts of the pandemic and to ensure we have a safe, fair, and secure election. This upcoming election is more important than ever in that we not only need to continue to get people registered to vote, we need them to be able to send in their ballots, vote in person, or drop them off, and make it all safe and seamless. And we want everybody in our community to be able to vote. By the way, in April of 2019, my colleagues and I unanimously approved for our county to implement the Voters' Choice Act, which I'm sure you're going to learn more about. And I'm really excited about that because, again, it just makes a lot of access. It increases access. In addition, our counties continue to expand our voter outreach and engagement in hard-to-reach communities, including jails, hospitals, foster youth centers, and many other challenged communities. And I know Shannon's going to take a deeper dive into this body of work. But one of the things I really wanted to give a shout out to our Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, because he allowed us to be able to work with Levi Stadium and at the SAP Center to make it even more possible for more people to vote. And so I'm just really grateful. I know you're going to learn a lot today. I'm just going to encourage people, write down your questions because we've got the people here who can answer them. So thank you very much, Assemblymember Chu. Great idea. I'm glad to be with you.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Again, thank you for your leadership during this very challenging time facing our county. Is our Representative Congressman Rowe on the line?
I see.
Yes,
him.
can you hear me?
Hey,
Yeah.
yes. All right. Okay.
Yeah, sir. Yeah, I'm just headed to the Capitol, but I really appreciate Assemblymember your leadership, and I heard our board president, Supervisor Cindy Chavez, and I was struck as she talked about our county and Alameda County's commitment to making it easier for people to vote, whether they are in jails or whether they're the elderly or whether they're underprivileged. How opposite that is from everything in Washington, where so many people are making it harder for people to vote around this country, really closing early ballot stations, making it hard for people's absentee ballots to get there in time. Some of these states are actually not even allowing for absentee ballots to be counted before election day, litigating the issue. So I think sometimes we forget how lucky we are in California, regardless of our election opponents or not, to all be committed to the principle that we need to make it easier for people to vote, that the right to vote is sacred. These are things that I actually took for granted until I made it to Washington, and now I've realized that there are a lot of people on the other side who are doing everything possible to make it hard to vote. But I am proud of what Santa Clara County has done in particular, and Alameda County, and being able to track your ballot. I'll be voting absentee, and in fact, I was just looking to track my ballot. When is it coming? When do I get to send it back? You can actually now track it to make sure that your ballot it counts, that it's received, and in our state, it doesn't cost money to do it, and we will count the ballot as long as it's in by election day, which is much different than a lot of other states. So I think we are a model for how the country should be. It's so important for everyone to vote in this election, and to show that our system is working, and that democracy is resilient despite the wildfires, despite the pandemic, despite all the obstacles. And I look forward to continuing to work with you, Assemblymember, and with our supervisor and our extraordinary registrar of voters and election offices to model what democracy should look like.
Thank you, Congressman, for pushing for us at the federal level to ensure that we get the assistance we need. And I'm glad that you wear a mask, and please avoid a White House when you're there in Washington, D.C.
Well, I have to say this one point which struck me today. The White House has more COVID cases in the White House than the countries of New Zealand, Vietnam, and combined, and Taiwan combined. There are more cases just in the White House. It's a abysmal case of management, just a total opposite. I wish Sarah Cody was president. I mean, just totally botched leadership.
That's really depressing, Congressman, but be safe out there. Looking forward to see you back home.
Thank you, absolutely.
All right, and now let's go to the most important part of this town hall. With us, we have Shannon Bechet, the Santa Clara County Register of Voters, and Tim Dupree, the Alameda County Register of Voters. Like I say, because the implementation may be a little bit different from county to county, so we'll let Shannon to have the first chance to address our voters in Santa Clara County. Shannon, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Assemblymember Chu. Yes, as we said, there are some differences between what Alameda County and Santa Clara County does, but there's a lot the same. We follow the same laws, such as the deadline to register to vote to receive a ballot in the mail is October 19th, versus something that may be different, like our office hours, weekend voting, different hours. So I would recommend for our viewers, of whichever county you're in, please, contact the county or go to their website to get the specific details. So can we move, next slide, please? And one more. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, a lot of people may wonder, what does the Registrar of Voters do? So we conduct all federal, state, and local elections, which, includes city and county, school, and special districts. And Santa Clara County's mission is to protect and ensure the community's right to participate in fair, inclusive, accurate, and transparent elections. People may wonder, what do you do all year? They think we might work 1 month a year, but actually for special elections, which they give us notice 88 days before for a measure, we work for 3 months conducting that election from beginning to end. But if it's like a primary or a general election in November, that can take anywhere from 5 to 8 months from beginning to end to complete all of the items. So we also do things such as maintaining the voter registration database. We conduct outreach. We do voter signature verification, like on initiative and recall and referendum petitions, and many other election-related tasks. Next slide, please. As Supervisor Chavez said, the Santa Clara County, Board of Supervisors passed in April of 2019 a law called the Voters' Choice Act, basically changing from a polling place model to a vote center model, which we implemented in March with the primary election. So for those of you who voted in March in Santa Clara County, it won't be anything new for you when you go to your vote centers or vote by mail this election, but it may be for some who were unable to vote in the primary. So the Voters' Choice Act, what it does, it modernizes the ways that we vote and gives voters more options. They really can choose, how, where, and when they vote. The Voters' Choice Act really provides for, just easier access and more services for our voters at vote centers, and such as, registering to vote, getting a replacement ballot, or getting a language assistance at our vote centers. And another key aspect of the Voters' Choice Act is you can go to any vote center in Santa Clara County, which is great. You're no longer limited to one vote center where you had to go by your house back from 2018. Now you can be driving and going shopping on the weekend or going to work and go vote on your lunch. You can vote at any vote center, which is just so much more convenient for our voters. And lastly, we mail everyone a ballot in Santa Clara County, which they were used to in March. slide, please. So in addition, in Santa Clara County, we implemented all kinds of great, fabulous new technology in March, a new voting system and new equipment. We've spent the last 3 years, researching, procuring, and implementing these new technologies. And this new voting system, it's great. It is more modernized while providing for vote center level tabulation, which speeds up our election night results. And we've actually replaced the paper voter roster where you used to sign in at the polls with an electronic tablet that voters will be checked in on and asked to sign. And this tablet also has all the voter registration information from our voter registration database. So that's great to refer to. And lastly, the ballot on demand system. You might wonder what that is, but it really is kind of like the name, ballot on demand. It's a printer where we can actually print the specific ballot type in the specific language that a voter needs, all with the press of a button on a printer. And that's what allows us to have a voter go to any vote center inside of our county to get a ballot. Next slide, please. I think you'll find this slide and the next slide very useful as we have information about key deadlines and dates for the November election. So the voting pamphlets, our county voter information guide, with all the measures and candidate statement information, we began mailing that recently, and it takes us several weeks to mail. We receive those daily shipments from the pamphlets from our printer, and then we inkjet the voter's address on them and send them out to be mailed. So we began mailing vote by mail ballots today, so be looking in your mailbox for your vote by mail ballots very soon, any day now. And the last day by law that we can actually mail out a ballot is October 27th. We also began in-person voting today at our office, and in a later slide, I'll cover the hours that we have in Santa Clara County. But I was really excited. I'm kind of hyped up right now because we already had 20 voters in line before we opened at 8 o'clock. And in my 25 years at Santa Clara County, I've never had that happen on the first day. So it's really been a very exciting morning. In addition, we have remote accessible vote by mail, which began today and is available through November 3rd. And then our 100 drop boxes also open today, and those are going to be available through November 3rd for anyone to put a ballot into. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, can we go back one? So the last day to register and to vote a regular ballot is October 19th. So that is the day, if you register by the 19th, we can mail you a ballot. But if you don't get registered by October 19th, that's okay. We have another solution for you, but try to get prepared and be ready and make your plan and get registered now. But in case you missed it, we have an option called conditional voter registration. So with conditional voter registration, you will fill out a conditional ballot envelope, and then you'll insert your ballot into the envelope so that it can come back to our office and we can enter your voter registration information, and then we'll be able to count your ballot. So you register and cast your ballot conditionally on the same day. And here in Santa Clara County, we're going to have 2 weekends of weekend voting at our office before the election. So the 2 weekends before November 3rd, October 24th and 25th, and October 31st and November 1st, we will have in-person voting in our office on Burger Drive. And then our vote centers, easy way to remember, Halloween. We're going to open our vote centers for 4 days on October 31st through November 3rd, of course, Election Day. And remember, for the November election only, we can accept ballots that are postmarked by November 3rd and received in our office by November 20th. It used to be 3 days after the election, and now it's a total of 17 days after, so by the November 20th. So that should give the post office plenty of time to be able to get your ballot to us. Next slide, please. And registering is just as easy as voting. You can register online at the register at registertovote.ca.gov. If you have a California driver's license or an ID card, it will pull your signature from the DMV into our voter file as your signature. But if you don't have a connection with the DMV, that's fine too. You can print out the information when you're online and mail it to us. You can also, though, pick up registration cards at like post offices and libraries or the DMV or many government offices. And of course, we can also mail you one if you just give us a call. So what I really want you to do is, make that plan to be prepared. How are you going to vote? Make sure you're registered first. Check your status. Do you need to update? Have you moved? So you can do all of this and confirm your registration status at voterstatus.sos.ca.gov. Next slide, please. And as we know, voting by mail is very easy to do. And it also is actually the safest way to vote by using the ballot that we mailed to you, because you're voting from your own home. We will have safe in-person options, but it is always the safest to vote from your own residence. So we will mail you a vote by mail packet that contains, everything you need to vote, including your instructions and your postage paid return envelope. So remember, no postage required to mail your ballot. And in Santa Clara County, you're going to have 4 ballot cards for this election. It's our longest ballot ever. So please get prepared and take your time to vote. And I just want to remind everyone, you don't have to vote on every contest if you don't want to. So don't feel like you're pressured to answer every contest and make a selection. It is for you to decide which contest you'd like to vote on. And you can see on the screen in the top right corner, the I voted sticker. That actually is a copy of our I voted sticker that you're going to receive with your vote by mail ballot when you get it in the mail. So next slide, please. So after you've completed your voting for all the contests that you choose to vote on, you should, remove the stub from your 4 ballot cards, place the ballot cards in the envelope, and make sure you fill out the outside of the envelope with your address and signature next to the red X. So you see on the screen, circled in red, is the signature box for you to sign and where you fill out your address. So please, most importantly, to fill that out. Now, if you want to authorize someone to return your ballot for you, all you need to do is complete the upper right-hand corner. That is if you would like somebody else to return your ballot for you, and is circled in yellow on your screen. So circled in green, I just wanted to point this out for Santa Clara County ballot return envelopes. You see what looks like some circles inside of the green circle? Actually, those are like hole punches in our envelope. One goes through and one is only on one side of the envelope. For visually impaired voters, just so you know why those are there, because they can feel where those are, the hole punches, and they know to put their signature in between. So it's just another way we can help our voters vote independently without assistance. And something else I've been hearing in the news, I just want to make sure you're aware that we do not print your party on the outside of your envelope. So just know, it has your name and address, but it does not have your political party information. Next slide, please. So voting by mail and, returning your ballot, it is really, really easy. As I said before, you're going to get your return envelope and it's going to be postage paid. So you don't need to weigh it and figure out how many postage stamps to put. You can also have other choices though. If you don't want to use the post office, drop it at a drop box or drop it at any vote center. In Santa Clara County, we're going to have 100 vote centers and we have 100 different places with drop boxes. So we have lots of locations for you to drop those off. And again, remember, drop boxes open today. So as soon as you get your ballot, you can vote and return it to one of our drop boxes. And was as it was mentioned earlier, there you can sign up to track your ballot at where'smyballot.gov. where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov. where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov. And here, you can go to our website also to confirm if your ballot's been received and any challenge reasons. But with the where'smyballot.com, I'm sorry, not .com, the Where's My Ballot website, you can track all the different phases of the ballot. When is the ballot mailed to you? When did the post office get it? When did the elections office get it, et cetera? So it's a really great service that started earlier this year with us, and we hope that you'll be able to sign up and see and track your ballot, all the steps along the way. Next slide, please. So you probably wonder what happens to my ballot after it gets to the Registrar of Voters office. So I want to first start out by saying we count and process, well, can't say count, we process every single ballot that comes in. Every single valid ballot is counted. We never stop ballots processing. We go until every single envelope is processed that we receive. So in our office, our ballots go through high-speed sorters, and on the sorting machine, it captures the scan of the outside of your envelope where your signature is. So before we even determine whether to open up your envelope and count your ballot, each signature is verified to the voter's signature on file to determine if it's a match. So this signature verification process is not performed by machines. That is done by our staff. Human eyes, we're looking at every single ballot and signature that comes in here to determine if it's a match. And if the first staff member looking at it determines, that it's not a match or it's missing, goes up to another level of review to look at the signature, and then a third level. So if it makes it through all of those levels and still is determined to be, it doesn't appear to match in signature, or is obviously missing a signature, that's really easy to tell if it's missing, we will send a notice. We will contact each one of our voters and let them know that their signature either didn't match or was missing. And we provide them the opportunity to submit a new signature for our records. And the voter will have until December 1st to, what we call it is curing the signature. So they'll have till December 1st to do so. And I have been hearing a lot of things in the news that vote by mail leads to widespread voter fraud. That just simply is not the case. We have no evidence whatsoever of widespread voter fraud in Santa Clara County or in California. So I just, want to make that very clear that we have checks and balances in place for that and to review everyone's signature. Next slide, please. So now that we've gone over voting by mail, I really want to move on to in-person voting options. Again, I really do encourage you to vote by mail if at all possible, but we understand, that voters need sometimes to go, they want to go in person, or maybe they need to replace their ballot, it got lost or the dog ate it, but they need a replacement ballot. We are here to provide you safe voting options for those who want the in-person voting. So on this slide, you'll see our hours. So again, this is just in Santa Clara County. But our office, on Berger Drive, Santa Clara County ROV office, open today for voting, and we will be open Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, from now through the day before the election. And then we're going to have weekend voting October 24th and 25th, and then October 31st and November 1st in our office Saturdays and Sundays from 9 to 5. And then, of course, Election Day, where our office and all of our vote centers are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Now, our vote centers, remember what day? Halloween, they'll open from October 31st to November 3rd. And those will be open the first 3 days from 9 to 5, and then the 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Election Day, November 3rd. So these are all full-service vote centers that can help you in any way. And you can also drop off your ballot. So you don't need just the drop box, which is 100 locations, but vote centers also can take your ballot drop-offs So feel free to go there for that also. And next slide, please. So I know many of you may be wondering how COVID is affecting voting in person, and it has. It's definitely changed, you know, how we operate vote centers, and it requires multiple safety protocols. So I want to ensure you, you know, and just tell you some of the things that we're doing in Santa Clara County. So, you know, our vote center staff will be taking extra steps to ensure safety protocols are followed. For instance, all voters will be provided personal protective equipment, PPE, such as, you know, disposable masks, gloves, and self-service hand sanitizer that they can use. All our poll workers will be issued PPE, including things as face shields, disposable masks, and disinfectant spraying gloves. Also at the vote centers, do expect social distancing. So we are doing protocols to help keep voters 6 feet apart. And in addition, our voter service areas at our vote centers will be equipped with clear plastic shields, like the plexiglass you've probably seen in many places, as added safety measures. For our styluses, like where you go and you vote on the touch screen, or pins that are used there at a vote center or in our office, we will sanitize those after each use. We'll have a need to be clean bucket and a clean bucket. So we're taking the sanitizing, all of the equipment and the things that voters touch very seriously. And one last thing, our layouts have been expanded and changed inside of a vote center. So from the March election to this November election, we of course went to space it out 6 feet apart from different voting booths and from where you check in at the electronic poll book or use the voting booth. So we're maximizing one way in and out of the vote centers and all of the equipment. So it'll be more spread out this time. And the last slide, please. So I know I mentioned about the voter fraud, but I just want to let everyone know, because I've heard other things on the news, about voting more than one time. So I just want to make sure, that everyone's aware that voting more than once is illegal. And we have system cross checks in place. So we're going to know, and we're not going to count that second ballot if you choose to cast more than one ballot. So as I explained, earlier, when you go to a vote center to vote, we use electronic poll books to look up a voter in our database, and we can see if someone has already voted at another vote center or if they voted by mail. So if they've already voted and they're at a vote center and they insist on voting, because by law, I cannot refuse a voter to vote, but I will not issue them a regular ballot. We will give them a provisional ballot. And what they do there is they put their ballot into a provisional envelope. It's a pink envelope in our county, and they fill out their voters' information. And then each envelopes come back to our office, where again, one by one, we will research and we will look up each voter to determine if they had already voted or not. Should we open their ballot and count it or not? So when we research the voter that went to a vote center and we see they've already mailed in a ballot or went to another vote center, we will not count that provisional ballot. And it's kind of the reverse. So if a voter votes by mail and already had gone to a vote center to vote, then when they vote by mail envelope comes in for processing, and it gets scanned as we told you, we also check there, had they already voted at a vote center or another way. And when we see that they voted at a vote center, we will not open and count their vote by mail ballot. So I just, really want to assure you that we have a lot of cross systems and cross checks in place that will determine, if we should count a ballot or not, and especially if it's a second ballot. And, if needed, we can refer names of voters over to the district attorney for voting more than one time. So just want to make everybody aware, just to vote your one ballot. So I hope you found this information useful. Again, Tim from Alameda County will be speaking with you and going over so the ways that Alameda County and their deadlines and timeframes that they have. So Thank you very much, and thank you, Assemblymember Chu.
Thank you, Shannon, for this information. You know, I'm just listening to your presentation. It reminds me and give me pride to say that, you know, I have supported those bills that now is being implemented throughout the state of California. I know that Santa Clara County started to have the prepaid return envelope before we become a state law. And also the notified voter, when you find the signature has changed from years, will also notify the voter. And the last one I jot down here is to give 17 days for the post office to deliver the ballot if they post a stamp on the election day. So it's really, really honored to be part of those changes, and I'm really happy that it's all being implemented throughout the state of California. With that, we'd like to invite Tim to talk about what's different between Santa Clara County and the Alameda County. Tim?
Thank you, Assemblymember Chu. Yes, so many of the things that Shannon talked about are exactly the same in Alameda County, but I'll try to cover many of the things we're doing and try to point out some of those differences. And one of those differences I'll start with is Alameda County is traditionally a polling place county. So we would normally have polling places for an election like this. We would have somewhere around 720 to 800 polling locations for one day. And I'm going to give you a comparison between what that looks like versus what we're going to have here on November 3rd. So why don't we go to the next slide? So a little bit of a history. We all know that back in March, there was a state of emergency declared on March 4th. As Assembly member discussed at the state level, we received an executive order telling us that this November election was going to be different. In June, we heard some of the specifics that all counties in California, all the 58 counties, would have to run their November 3rd election differently. We'd have to have a drop box for every 15,000 voters. We have to have a voting location for every 10,000 voters. This is across the entire state. And then it was further refined with some legislation. And then finally, some of the legislation that you've already heard about is changing our date of receiving the mail from 3 days to 17 days. So this is all are very good changes for us in November. And again, we received all of this guidance from the state. Go to the next slide. So I want to compare our 2018 election, general election, to our 2020 so that the voters can see the difference. So in 2018, as I said, we had 800 assigned polling precincts for the election. And those were open for one day if you wanted to vote in person. In 2020, for November, we are going to have 100 countywide. We call them accessible vote locations. They're these vote centers that Shannon was talking about. We're going to have 100 of them, and they're going to be open for the same number of days for in-person voting as Santa Clara. That's Halloween plus the 4-day period, including the election day. In 2018, we had 28 ballot drop boxes. These are drop boxes where people can drop them in what looks like a mailbox, but they're the registrar of voters boxes, and our staff goes and picks those up every day. In 2020, we are increasing that to meet the mandate of 1 per 15,000 voters. We're increasing it to 66 ballot drop boxes. And all of those that are installed today are open today for early voting because today is the first day of early voting. In 2018, we had to recruit 4,800 poll workers for that type of an election, a polling place election. In 2020, we have to recruit 1,700 election workers per day for 4 days. And this is a remarkable area. I was concerned about our recruitment of our volunteer election workers because of the pandemic. Was concerned that we might not meet that 1,700 election workers per day. We're actually up to 4,800 volunteers per day. We have a reserve that's tremendous. It's amazing how our community has come out to assist us with this election. In 2018, as I said, we would be open for that 1 day of in-person voting, Election Day. In 2020, we are going to be open for 4 days of in-person voting. Next slide. So again, we are a polling place county, and in 2018, on the left of the screen, you see what a polling place looks like. It had to be a minimum of 600 square feet. We had a printed roster index so people can sign a physical printout. We had a touch screen and scanner for voters with accessibility needs, and it took 6 trained poll workers to run that polling place. In 2020 for November, we will have accessible vote locations, and these need to be larger. They need to be a minimum of 2,500 square feet to allow for the social distancing and the space required. Very similar to Santa Clara, we're going to have electronic poll books instead of printed rosters this time, which allows us to do this style of an election. We're going to have 4 touchscreen ballot marking devices for our voters with accessibility needs. We're going to be able to print the voter information guide on demand at these locations in any of the languages required. And we're going to have 2 ballot on demand printers so we can print out any of the ballots in the languages required. This type of a vote location requires more people. We need 17 trained election workers and 1 trained ROV staff member to run the facility. So I'd like to focus on that 2020 picture for a moment. We want our voters to vote safely and have the option to vote safely. If they want to use these accessible vote locations, let's start with first, every voter across the state of California, every registered voter is being mailed a ballot today and throughout this week, well, starting this week. And hopefully they take that ballot and they'll vote that ballot. If they want to bring that ballot to one of these accessible vote locations, we're going to have a drive-through option so they don't have to get out of their car. They can drive up, hand us their ballot, and we'll give them their I voted sticker, and they can watch us drop it in the ballot box. So that's one option. So they don't actually have to come into the facility, but they can use the facility. The other option is if they want us to bring them a ballot, we have curbside voting. So they can come up to the curb, tell us their name, give us their information, park, and we'll run a ballot out to their car so they can stay in their car in the safety of their car, vote their ballot, and then drive through and drop it off at our ballot drop with our workers there and get their I voted sticker. If they absolutely have to come into the location, as I said, it's a very large space. We're going to have all the protections in place that Shannon outlined, so very similar. And we'll limit the number of people who can come into the facility. We'll have a queuing process, and we'll make sure that everybody can come into these facilities safely and in person vote. So a little bit different than what we have with polling places in 2018. Next slide. In Alameda County, we're currently at 934,000 registered voters, and we want people to continue to register. We feel like we might actually get to 1 million voters by November. We have, in 2018, we had 879,000. So you can see the growth in our registered voters between the 2 years. And when we take a look at our permanent vote by mail voters in Alameda County, we're over 80%. So 81% of our voters have chosen to be permanent vote by mail voters. So they would have gotten a ballot in the mail anyway. Really, we're talking about the additional voters who aren't permanent vote by mail voters who are being mailed a ballot, since every voter in California is being mailed a ballot. We also picked up 6 additional languages that we support. You see them on the slide. We are now up to 14 languages that we support in Alameda County. Next slide. So again, doing this comparison between 2018 and 2020. In 2018, we had 4 accessible vote locations for the county. Now we're going to have 100 locations on November 3rd. And again, it has all of the features that you've heard from both me and Shannon. Will be open for the 4 days, including election day. Next slide. This is a picture of one of our 24-hour ballot drop boxes. We have to install 1 drop box per 15,000 voters. That brings us up to 66 drop boxes for the November election in Alameda County. They're open 24 hours a day, and we will be picking them up. In terms of chain of custody, we send 2 people out to each of these places for pickup. In this way, we know that we have a chain of custody and a check and balance in our pickup, and again, all the proper physical distancing and safety requirements are adhered to as we go about maintaining these boxes. Next slide. So if you would like to see where all of the accessible vote locations are going to be, or if you'd like to see where the drop boxes are, our main page for Alameda County is acvote.org. That's the Registrar of Voters website. But we do have a section under Community and Partnerships, which gives you a map of where all the accessible vote locations and drop box locations are, and it will tell you how we're doing, especially on the drop boxes, on our installation of those drop boxes. As you can imagine, we learned that in June we needed to bump up the number of drop boxes, so we've had them ordered, they're showing up, and we're going to be installing them. They're arriving actually just this week, and we're installing them as fast as we can. So please check our website so you can see where they are and see if they've been installed. But rest assured, they'll be installed very rapidly. They're showing up, and we're going to install them as quickly as we can. Next slide. So I finish with a thank you. So thank you all for listening to me and the differences. Hopefully you can see that there's a lot of overlap between what Shannon presented and I did. Our deadlines are pretty much the same, and I'm open for any questions that people might have.
Thank you, Tim. There's a lot of overlap, and I really wanted to reiterate that now you can pretty much register and vote on the same day, and the deadline for regular registration is October 19th. So before I pass the microphone to my intern, Gabriel, to ask some questions that have submitted to the office. I have any questions. Can I ask that question now? Maybe to any one of the registrar of voters. You know, when we fill up the envelope, you know, we have to sign their name on the envelope, and right beneath it is the address. Do the voter just have to handwritten into that space their address, or we can type in, or somebody else can fill in the address for the voter?
Sure. This is Shannon. Yes, they can handwrite that in. Someone can fill it in for them. I mean, obviously, the voter needs to do their own signature.
Right.
And we are actually able to process it if they have forgotten to list their address, as long as their signature is on there.
Great.
So,
Thank you so much. Because that was always a question for me. To say, do I need to fill up, or I can type my address in before I sign it? Thank you very much. Now we're going to turn the microphone to Gabriel Young, who will read the questions that you all have submitted before and during this town hall. So Gabriel, take it from here.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member. So our first question is, when will we get our ballots for voting by mail or sample ballots for those wanting to vote in person?
I can answer that. The ballots are being mailed out this week, and people may already have them in hand. The sample ballots were mailed out, started mailing out a couple weeks ago, so people should be receiving their sample ballots and their voter information guides as well.
Thank you, Tim. Shannon, how about Santa Clara County?
we're along the same boat lines as Alameda. We began mailing just over a week ago, and it takes us about a total of 3 weeks to do our almost 1 million voters. And as we receive them daily, we inkjet them and mail them out. So they are in the process right now.
All right, thank you. Another question for Tim. When will early votes, both those dropped off at drop boxes and those mailed early, be counted in Alameda County?
That's a great question. Early votes are coming in, and Shannon alluded to it. As soon as we, around 10 days before the election, we're able to start scanning the ballots that we receive early, and we're going to be scanning those as quickly as we can. We can't tally the vote, but we can queue them up into the system. And when we hit 8 p.m. on election night and the polls close, we're going to be allowed to hit the tally button. At that point, the votes that we post are those early votes that we've been able to scan in through that entire time. So we're going to get through as many of those early votes as we possibly can. We have 16 high-speed scanners that are going to be busy scanning those ballots in. We're going to try to get as many of them down to the last day that we can into the system so that they can get posted. So if you vote early, you're very likely going to see, you're very likely going to be part of the initial tally that we post shortly after 8 p.m.
Thank you so much, Tim. Our next question is, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, there are people locked down outside of the United States. The state of California does not allow voting online. I am also locked down with my family in Central Asia and won't be able to return by November. What are my options and how can I exercise my democratic rights?
I'll go ahead and do that next then. So voters that are currently, if you are stranded outside of the country, you can register as an overseas voter if you need to at fvap.gov. It's a website where they can have their ballot emailed or mailed to them, whichever the voter prefers, and then they can fax or mail their ballots back. So they should really go to the fvap.gov and they can get information, get their ballot sent to them overseas.
Thank you. And then Tim, is that the same for Alameda County as well?
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you. Next question. My kids are asking me what pre-voter registration is. Could you please go into more detail?
So pre-registering is for our soon-to-be voters. Voters that are under 18 can pre-register to vote, and when they turn 18, they'll be registered to vote in our system. So that's a great thing for our soon-to-be voters to get them registered, and as soon as they're eligible to vote the next election, they'll get all of their information. If they vote as a permanent vote by mail voter, they'll get their election material mailed to them and they'll be ready to vote.
All right, thank you. Next question. What law enforcement protocols are in place in the event an individual or groups engage in hostile, combative voter suppression under the guise of observing voters at the 100 vote centers opening October 31 through November 3?
So here in Santa Clara County, I hope that we do not have those occurrences at our vote centers, but we are prepared. I mean, it really is going to be, a case-by-case basis. The law allows the public to monitor. They can go and observe inside of a vote center, but they can't disrupt the voting process. They can't go behind the voter processing table. So it's not like they can be walking all around inside and be next to voters, et cetera. So they are allowed to observe. But if there are things that they're doing that are not in agreement with and they're being obstructive, we can ask them to leave a vote center. We in Santa Clara County have been making connections to the 15 cities law enforcement to have an inside number to be able to call. But of course, again, it kind of depends on the situation. And if there is someone threatening or aggressive, anyone, of course, can call 911. We do have our vote center workers, trained to calm people down. We have a 299 hotline inside for our workers to call us at the office. But again, if needed, they can call 911. So we are being prepared and hoping not to have to use any of that.
Thank you. And then Tim, is that similar in Alameda County as well?
It is very similar. And something to note is that we also have to be cognizant of the social distancing requirements and the protective equipment requirements. So we will, for observers at these locations, only allow a limited number at a time with a rotation basis. But as Shannon said, if it becomes disruptive, of course, the last resort would be to call law enforcement in if we had to, but we would ask them to leave if they were being disruptive. They can't disrupt the election process and the people's voting process. So we do have strong connections with local law enforcement if necessary, but we hope it never comes to that.
All right, thank you. And I know you're kind of touching upon in-person voting. So could you both go into more detail about how in-person voting will look like, and especially the social distancing protocols that will be taking place?
Sure.
Go ahead, Shannon.
Okay, thank you. So yes, the social distancing protocols, as Tim was also saying, voting equipment, voting stations will be kept 6 feet apart with the proper PPE and disinfectant of the actual voting machines after each voter uses them, and in between, disinfecting the styluses they use to vote, the pens they use, etc. As far as, so you asked about the PPE, and what was the first part again, Gabriel? Oh, just the in-person, what it was going to be like, right? Sorry. So in Santa Clara County, our layouts look similar to Tim's. We did the same thing between the March election and the November election. We had to make our layouts of our vote centers much more spread out. So in Santa Clara County, we will have appropriate markings on the floor. So when you come up to a vote center and you want to vote, if there is a line, you will wait socially distanced apart from the next voter in line. And then when you first enter, you will use the electronic poll book. So first we're going to check you in. We need to know who you are, and we will look you up and confirm that you're still there at that address and your registration. And we will have you sign on the poll book to sign in. And then we will have another worker who will use that ballot on demand printer to print out your specific ballot type, because we have, thousands of different versions. And we can print out ballot type number 182 in Spanish if that's what you need, in an instant. So they will receive their ballot from the ballot printer staff, and then they'll be allowed to go to one of the booths and actually vote. Or if they'd like, instead of getting the paper ballot from us at the ballot printer, they can use one of our accessible touchscreen voting pieces of equipment, where they will mark with a stylus all of their choices which would then print out a paper ballot and then either from the voting equipment or from someone just voting a paper ballot, you both take your ballot to a tabulator in which you insert your ballot, which is scanned in and dropped down to a secure location below the scanner. And then we would happily give you your I voted sticker. So that's kind of the basic process of what's going to happen in a vote center in Santa Clara County.
Got it. We also have a parent asking for both Alameda and Santa Clara, is it safe to bring my kids inside to vote with me?
So we certainly don't discourage it. People have brought their children traditionally with them to vote. It shows that the children you performing your civic duty and participating in the election. This one election, of course, what we want to do is we want to give everybody an opportunity to vote safely, right? And that's why we're mailing out ballots to all of our voters and giving them the option to vote by mail, to vote in the drop boxes, to come by. We also will be having ballot drop stops throughout the county where people can drive up and hand the ballots to us. We want people to really be able to be secure in their space and get those ballots to us. You know, they can probably bring their children with them as they drop off their ballot to one of our drop stops. We would like people to use the accessible vote locations or the vote centers as basically a last resort. As you can see, the way we've laid out the vote centers, we're still trying to allow people to do what they need to within the confines of their car, so they don't actually have to come in. So the last resort we hope people exercise is the option of coming in physically to the location. So it's not that we're going to discourage it, but we do want people to be able to vote safely and do it in a way that makes everybody feel comfortable and get out there and vote.
Thank you, Tim. And then Shannon, similar with Santa Clara County, I presume?
Correct. You know, exactly like Tim said. We do prefer vote by mail as a preference, just the safest way to not come into any facility and vote at your own home. And you can sit at your kitchen table and have your children, you know, help you vote and talk to them about voting just as well as you could in a vote center. And of course, we do allow them. Yes, you are welcome to bring your child with you into the Santa Clara County Vote Center. But again, that is a decision of the parent, but yes, we would allow that.
Thank you. To clarify, will there be less polling places in both counties than there were in March due to the pandemic? And would that require people to drive even further or a similar distance if there are less polling places?
So for Santa Clara County, again, this is where, and Tim will explain his for Alameda County. This is a different, so we already went to the Voters' Choice Act in March, and that meant we do one vote center per 10,000 voters for the 4 days. So we in Santa Clara County will continue to follow the same formula for November. So we do not have less vote centers because of COVID for this election, no.
All right.
All right. So in Alameda County, we are a polling place county. So we would normally have somewhere between 720 to 800 polling locations open for one day, the election day, and every voter would be assigned to a single polling place that they would have to go to. So to answer your question literally, we will have a less number of accessible vote locations than polling places like we had in March. But so we'll have 100 accessible vote locations, but they're going to be open for 4 days. They're going to be open October 31st through November 3rd. And the voter isn't assigned to any particular one. They can go to any of the 100 if they need to go in and in-person vote. So they can go to the one that's convenient to them. So hopefully they'll be, if I have a voter that lives in Livermore but works in Oakland, If it's convenient for them to go to a vote location within Oakland, they could go there today and vote their ballot. Whereas back in March, they wouldn't have been able to do that. They would have had to go all the way back to Livermore to vote at the assigned precinct.
All right, thank you. Since we're on the topic of voting locations, is there a poll worker shortage, and where can I sign up to be a poll worker?
In Santa Clara County, we, like Tim, we are not in a shortage. I know last week we were looking for a handful that could speak Korean, Syriac, Russian, or Khmer, but we have a couple thousand extra poll workers who have offered that we unfortunately are unable to use. We're saving, asking if they'd like to work future elections, but I just want to thank our communities for such wonderful turnout. I've never had to be able to 6 or 7 weeks before an election say we were full and have such an abundance. So thank you very much to our community.
And then
And in Alameda County, yes, very similar in Alameda County. We needed 1,700 election workers each day, and we're at 4,800 volunteers at this point for each day. It's wonderful, as I said, how the community has come out to help us. And similar to what Shannon's saying, if there's an area where we are still recruiting, in that it is for our bilingual election workers. We can always use more bilingual election workers. So if you have those language skills in one of the 13 or 14 languages that we're supporting, they can come to our website, acvote.org, and we have all of the contact information for signing up to help us.
All right, thank you. Another question. Is my employer required to allow me time to vote on election day?
Yes. Basically, an employer should be able to allow up to 2 hours of time off when they want to go out and vote without the loss of pay. They try to prefer for it to be like at the beginning or an ending of a shift, but they are required to give you up to 2 hours to take off for voting. But remember, again, in both of our counties, our vote centers are open from Halloween through November 3rd and weekend voting. So there are many opportunities to vote.
Thank you. Next question. In this era of online scams and identity theft, I'm reluctant to click on any links, and certainly those not coming from a .gov email address. Are the updates from the email updates@calballottracks.com or where's my ballot from a legitimate source?
Yes, Ballot Tracks is the system that we're using throughout the state to track ballots so that people are delivering to us through the mail. And Where's My Ballot is the Secretary of State's website for tracking through that system. And we also have links on our Alameda County website that if you would like to use a secure link, you can come to our website and it will click you right through to that. So you can track your ballot that you have mailed to us through the post office.
All right, thank you. Next question. Amidst concerns about USPS delays, what is the best way to ensure my vote is counted?
Well, there's several ways to go around the post office. If you are concerned about the post office or putting your ballot into the mail, it's postage free, that we have plenty of other options in Alameda and Santa Clara counties. I mean, we have the drop boxes that you can go drop in. The ones in Santa Clara County, they are all located outside this election. So they are all 24 hours for our drop boxes, and they're either, bolted down or secured with chains. So we have those available. You can go drop your ballot off at any vote center for the 4 days that the vote centers are open. I mean, for those 4 days, there's 200, locations that you could drop off your ballot in Santa Clara County. So you can avoid the post office and just drop it off directly.
All right, thank you. Another question we have is, Can you please describe the efforts that Alameda and Santa Clara counties are taking to ensure access to voting for residents in skilled nursing facilities?
So all of what we've described is available. The ballots are being mailed out to every individual. So they'll be receiving the ballot in the mail. And then they'll have all of the different options that we've just outlined to get their vote in. And hopefully any one of those is going to be available to them. We're also working with the League of Women Voters, who's focused on this as well. And we're working with community groups to get the message out to all of our different groups that may have some challenges as to what their options are and how they can get their vote in. So we are focused on these groups, also our voters that are homeless. We're reaching out to those groups as well. So there are some groups that are going to, we're very well focused on. We're trying to get the information out. The key is to give them the information they need to know all of their options for getting us their vote.
All right, thank you. And then Shannon?
Basically, the same as Tim said, you know, we've worked with hospitals and facilities in Santa Clara County before where they may be email us the letters of authorization, we prepare the ballots, and then they can, you know, the nurse or someone can come pick them up the next day. For this election, we're able to expand our new emergency ballot delivery program, even though, you know, we've done it before, but we got a list of several hundred facilities in our county and went ahead and did communication with them and trying to make sure they're informed about what we offer and give them a pamphlet and, you know, how to register to vote and trying to get a contact with each facility. So you can see that, you know, both Alameda and Santa Clara do have great efforts to work with facilities to assist people to get their ballots.
All right, thank you. And I think we're at our final question, but it's specifically for Tim. Do you still need locations for in-person voting? And where can I find a list of voting locations for this election?
So we have secured all 100 of our accessible vote locations, and we've secured our 66 drop boxes. You can go to acvote.org. It's under Community and Partnerships tab. You'll see a map and a list of all of those locations that we've secured. And when you receive your voter information guide, all the information is going to be there for the in-person voting options. But yes, we have secured all locations, and they'll be ready for everybody on October 31st.
Thank you so much, Tim, and thank you so much, Shannon. All right, I'll now give the microphone back to the Assembly member.
Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you for all the participants for your good questions. You know, I just had a follow-up question on this healthcare facility. For the homelessness people, they don't have a resident. We have volunteers to drop out their ballot in Santa Clara and Alameda.
Well, I do want to say that homeless can register. So they are allowed to register. We can take cross streets. They don't need to have a specific address as their residential address. That way we can figure out what area they're in so that they can vote. And then wherever they do tell us to mail the ballot, we will send it to them. Or yes, they can contact like League of Women Voters or an organization to help facilitate, authorize anybody to pick up a ballot for them. So there are different ways, and we strongly encourage everyone to get registered and vote. You don't need a residential address to register.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Tim, for providing such a very, very detailed information about this coming election. You know, we know it's going to be different than the one that we had before. And I also want to thank Congressman Ro Khanna to office for getting this message out, as well as President of Santa Clara County Supervisor Cindy Chavez's office. So I just wanted to let the people know that my office is still open. And if you ever need any help or assistance, we stand ready to assist you. Although we don't allow more than 2 people in the office, but our office line is connected directly to the staff's cell phone. So thank you very much for joining us. Please be safe. And today, I think, is a deadline for filling up your census information. So if you haven't done that, please do so by the end of the day. Thank you. Thank you again.